The Whispering Cabin. It was a cold, crisp evening in late October when the storm clouds gathered over the small, sleepy town of Black Hollow, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. The kind of place where people spoke in hushed tones and where every shadow held a secret. The cabin at the edge of the woods had always been the subject of strange rumors. Locals avoided it, especially when the wind howled through the trees as if trying to tell a story no one wanted to hear. The cabin had been abandoned for years, and yet whenever someone ventured close, a faint sound could be heard drifting through the trees, a whisper barely audible yet unmistakable. Some believed it was the wind, others insisted it was the spirits of those long forgotten calling out in the dead of night. But tonight was different. Ben Cartwright, a journalist from New York City, had driven up to Black Hollow in search of a story. He had heard the legends of the Whispering Cabin and had always been skeptical, dismissing them as nothing more than local superstition. He had made it his mission to uncover the truth. With his camera in hand and a notebook full of questions, Ben set out for the cabin, the wind biting at his skin, the night sky pressing down on him. As he reached the clearing, the cabin loomed ahead, its silhouette dark against the thunderous sky. The windows, once clear and welcoming, were now darkened and shattered. The wooden door creaked in the wind, as if beckoning him inside. Ben hesitated for a moment, feeling a strange unease, but his curiosity overpowered his instinct for caution. He stepped forward, the crunch of dead leaves underfoot the only sound accompanying him. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the stale scent of decay hanging heavy. The floorboards groaned beneath his weight, and the walls seemed to whisper as the wind slipped through the cracks. The light from his flashlight cast long, eerie shadows across the room, illuminating forgotten relics, old furniture, peeling wallpaper, and strange symbols carved into the wooden beams overhead. Ben moved cautiously through the cabin, his footsteps echoing unnervingly. As he approached the fireplace, his flashlight flickered. He cursed under his breath, adjusting the beam, and then froze. For a moment, he could have sworn he saw something. A figure, standing in the corner of the room, barely visible in the dim light. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling more than he liked to admit. No response. Only the wind howled through the broken windows, drowning out his words. His heart raced, but he pressed on. He couldn't afford to be scared. After all, this was just a cabin, a relic of the past. There had to be a logical explanation for the stories that haunted this place. Maybe an old miner's ghost, or perhaps just the mind playing tricks on him. Ben reached the back room of the cabin, where the whispering was most often heard. The door creaked as he opened it, revealing a small chamber with a narrow, cobweb-covered window. The room felt colder than the rest of the cabin, and a sense of dread settled over him like a heavy blanket. It was then that he saw it, a journal, old and weathered, lying on the floor in the corner. He knelt down, brushing off the dust, and opened the first page. The handwriting was shaky, as though the writer had been in great distress. The words scrawled inside spoke of a terrible secret, something that had been hidden away for generations. There was talk of an ancient curse, a hidden treasure, and a family bound to the cabin by blood and betrayal. Suddenly, the wind howled again, louder this time, as if responding to the words in the journal. Ben's flashlight flickered once more, and then the whispering began. It was faint at first, but gradually it grew louder, closer, almost as if it were circling him, pressing in from every direction. Ben's heart raced. What is this?" he muttered, his voice barely a whisper himself now. The whispers began to form words, but they were incomprehensible, a jumble of phrases all at once, overlapping and chaotic. And then, through the noise, one word stood out, clear as day. "Leave." Ben jerked his head up, his pulse pounding in his ears. The room seemed to shift, the walls closing in on him. The whispers grew louder, now filling the entire cabin. The temperature dropped rapidly, and the flashlight in his hand sputtered before going out completely, leaving him in complete darkness. He heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate and heavy, behind him. Ben's breath caught in his throat as he spun around, but there was nothing there. The whispers continued, now growing frantic, urging him to leave, to run, to escape before it was too late. But Ben couldn't move. He was frozen in place, the weight of the cabin's history pressing down on him. Then, in the silence that followed, he heard it, a soft, almost inaudible laugh. It was low, guttural, and unmistakably human. Suddenly a sharp bang echoed from upstairs. Ben snapped his head toward the sound, his heart nearly stopping. Someone was up there. Without thinking, he bolted out of the room, his feet scrambling across the floor as he rushed toward the stairs. The whispers had quieted, but the atmosphere was thick with an unbearable tension. The air felt alive, pulsing with some unseen presence, urging him onward. He reached the staircase and started climbing, each step creaking under his weight. The dark hallway above seemed to stretch endlessly before him, the shadows swallowing any hint of light. But Ben was determined. He had to know what was up there. As he reached the top, he paused. The house was silent, almost too silent. No sound but the rapid thumping of his own heartbeat. The hallway stretched out before him, each door closed and shrouded in darkness. But one door, the door at the end of the hall, was slightly ajar. He took a deep breath, then pushed the door open. Inside was a room that had not been touched in years. Dust hung thick in the air, and the floor was littered with broken furniture and old tattered sheets. But it was the far corner that caught his attention. There, in the corner, was a figure, standing motionless, facing the wall. Ben's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. The figure was just there. Then, slowly, it turned. Its face was obscured by shadows, but there was something wrong with its eyes. They were too dark, too empty. It took a step forward, then another, its movements jerky and unnatural. Ben wanted to scream, wanted to run, but he couldn't. His body wouldn't obey him, and then it spoke. "You shouldn't have come.